After overhearing some locals talk about how Peyton Manning is the best QB ever, I decided to chime in and say sure, Peyton is an all-time great, but Tom Brady has obviously been better. Well, as you can imagine, I ended up getting chased out of there as they started to throw some loose gravel at me. Lucky for me, their aim was worse than Brother Eli's. I was followed for a little bit, but not for too long. I've got to say that I was feeling nervous for a second as the Colts happened to lose a big game late in the season on the day that I filmed this video, so those fans were probably in their feelings. Nonetheless, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, as doing all of those things helps these videos destroy the evil monster that is the YouTube algorithm. Although, Colts fans might not want to do that for me after I just gave them a hard time, but if that's not you, then also make sure to hit that notification bell so that you can be notified every time that I upload a new video. If you enjoyed this video, you might enjoy checking out some of the featured playlists on this channel. Videos with amazing insights on other places like what you see here can be found in my Indianapolis playlist or in my Indiana playlist. Last but not least, if you can't get enough of me on here, you can always go follow me on my other social media accounts, and those links are below. Now that we've crossed 30th Street, we're now in the city limits of Speedway. Speedway is a suburb of Indianapolis that is surrounded in all directions by the city limits of Indianapolis. It wasn't always this way, but in 1970, Indianapolis consolidated with the government of Marion County, which allowed Indianapolis to annex all of the land within the county, with the exception of only 4 other towns, the others being Beech Grove, Lawrence, and Southport. However, it goes without saying that Speedway is mostly known for being home to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which is directly to the left. From here on Georgetown Road, the Speedway just looks like a pair of bleachers from a high school football stadium on steroids. This road used to connect to 16th Street and Crawfordsville Road to the south, but in 2015 they closed off the section of Georgetown Road, and today it's no longer a through street. Directly on the other side from these stands, however, is the famed racetrack. The part of the stands that we're driving past right now is the backside of the paddock seating area, which is one of the more desirable places to be while watching the race. From there you can get views of the pits, the finish line, and the winner's circle. Yeah, not too much to see here other than the backside of the bleachers. Here's a better view of what's on the other side. This drone shot was taken from about a mile west of the Speedway. The Speedway has rules where you're not allowed to fly a drone on the owned property of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which means that you can't take off from the property. That includes the forever stretching grass fields that surround the racetrack, as those are used for parking and tailgating on race day, and it's owned by the Speedway. From here, the Pagoda Tower is what stands out on the track, and it's 1 1/10 of a mile away from where I'm flying. You can see a field of solar panels here as well, and it's the largest solar farm owned by any sporting facility in the world, for whatever that's worth. I mean, I don't think of solar farms when I think of sporting facilities, but it's a good thing as before 2014, it was a vacant plot of land. The solar farm helps contribute to the power grid for IPL customers, which is the local power supply company. From here, you can also see that there's a golf course on the property of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, in between the solar farm and the track. On to the Indy 500. They call it the greatest spectacle in racing, and the claim is backed up as the Indy 500 sees an average of 300,000 fans. In 2016, the Indy 500 celebrated its 100th anniversary, which broke the record for fans with 350,000, and that's the record set for a sporting event across the entire world. In case you're wondering, it's not called the Indy 500 because they do 500 laps around the track, but it's called the Indy 500 as the drivers race for 500 miles, which equals out to be 200 laps. The event is Indianapolis's claim to fame, even though it's held in the city of Speedway. That's commenters giving me a hard time from my downtown Indy video and me returning the favor. But anyway, it draws interest from celebrities across the nation. It's on many people's bucket lists, rightfully so, and even though it's in the city of Speedway, it's essentially the identity of Indianapolis, and it's a part of the identity of the entire state of Indiana. Many traditions have developed over the years surrounding the race, including the annual singing of the song titled Back Home Again in Indiana, along with the winner of the race drinking milk upon victory. Speedway is a functioning city too, you know. It's not just home to a racetrack, but it also has a school system, a police and fire department, and it's home to just over 10,000 people. As you can see here, the population of Speedway has dropped only by a couple of thousand since its 1970 peak, and the population will probably stay around 12,000 for the foreseeable future, as there's no room for expansion. It's not like Indianapolis is going to hand any land over to Speedway, and it's not like we're going to see large high-rises being built in downtown Speedway anytime soon. In contrast, the population of Marion County, which is mostly the city of Indianapolis, has seen continuous population growth over the years. Today, Speedway is home to just over 12,000 residents, and the median household income is $42,000 per year. 31% of adults 25 and older hold a bachelor's degree or higher, and the median value of owner-occupied housing units is $122,000. The poverty rate is nearly double the national average at 19%. The violent crime rates are right around the national average rates. However, the property crime rates are nearly double the national average rates. You residents of Speedway need to get a job and stop breaking into your neighbors' cars. For real though, that's not cool, people. Anyway, just a bit ago, you were able to see a nice view of the Pagoda Tower from this neighborhood. Alright, so I just mentioned those crime stats, and whenever I do that and they look bad, I always end up making a group of people mad, and they always let me have it in the comment section below. Look, those are the real crime rates. If you do decide to live in Speedway, that's something that you should know, right? I'm sure you could live here in peace, just don't leave valuables in your cars, and make sure that your car and home are locked, be street smart, and you should be good. Housing is affordable here, so if you have a job in the Indianapolis area and you're drawn to Speedway, whether it's the simple life with the affordable housing and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the backyard, you should be able to live a good life. However, while we're on the topic of crime, the areas of Indianapolis that surround the city of Speedway have much to be desired these days, as Indy's west side has seen a spike in both violent and property crime in recent years, even before the pandemic began. I used to live not too far from where we are currently back in 2016, and I often saw news headlines of gunshots and other violence occurring in the parts of Indianapolis that are really close by to Speedway. But we can dive deeper into the crime rates of Indianapolis in future videos where I'll focus on different parts of the city. To the left here is the main entrance to the Speedway for pedestrians, and the reason why Georgetown Road was removed was to allow for this plaza to get built. And you can see a shiny glass building here, which is the ticket office for the IMS. And here's the main entrance to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Traffic during this time looks dead now. I mean, I did film this on a holiday weekend, but during the month of May, this area can be gridlocked with traffic. Practices have become popular for race fans to watch during the weeks that lead up to the race. During those days, the racetrack inside sort of becomes like a state fair, or at least I always thought so, as inside the track it's packed with multiple vendors, shops, and fair food throughout the massive plot of land. Event workers driving around on golf carts, brand new sports cars on display. It's a great experience. Another big day here in the month of May is one that they call Carb Day. It's usually held on the Friday before the race. Carb Day is short for Carburation Day, but it gets its name from the fact that race teams have their final practice that day. It's when the teams will tune up their carburetors to best fit the expected conditions that might be encountered on race day. Today, the joke is that Carb Day is called Carb Day because fans will camp out, jam to rock and roll concerts, and let out their inner white trash by chugging down cases of cheap beer, eating a bunch of junk food, and otherwise taking in all the carbs. You even have adult beverages that now sponsor Carb Day. Rock and country concerts usually highlight the day, but there's other big events in the Carb Day lineup such as the Pit Stop Challenge and the Indy Lights Freedom 100 race. Technically, I'm in the city limits of Indianapolis, but I won't be for too long. But anyway, while I'm on subject, after the Memorial Day weekend is over, it's become standard for the local news media to post stories afterwards showing videos and images of all of the trash that gets left behind from the weekend festivities. And I'll leave it to your imagination on what items can be found throughout the grounds of the Speedway after the race. Tenth Street is one of the more rough areas of Indianapolis. It's pretty much that way throughout the entire city on both the east side and the west. This part that goes through Speedway is alright though. Currently, we're on the very far south end of the city limits of Speedway. To the left is the headquarters of Allison Transmission, which I guess is technically in the city limits of Indianapolis. It only makes sense to have a little bit of auto industry right by the Speedway, right? Well, the company was founded by James A. Allison. Allison was also a part of some others that helped fund the construction of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The Speedway was built and opened in 1909, and the design of the 2.5-mile-long oval track has largely remained unchanged ever since being built. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway is the second oldest racetrack in the United States for automobiles, only behind the Milwaukee Mile, which started being used for auto races in 1903. So that should show you the strong ties between Allison Transmission and the Speedway. Today, most of the company's products are found in larger vehicles. For example, you'll find parts for Allison Transmissions in buses ran by the city of Chicago, Washington, D.C., Denver, Philadelphia, Minneapolis, Boston, and of course, Indianapolis. The thoroughfare that we're on currently, called Lyndhurst Drive, cuts straight through the city limits of Speedway. Originally, Marion County was split up into 9 townships, in which most of now is the city limits of Indianapolis, but most locals still use the townships to describe the parts of the county that they're in. For this area, most people would just say Speedway, but Speedway is within Wayne Township of Marion County. Some townships have their own fire departments and school districts, and Wayne Township has just that. Speedway has its own school district, fire and police department though, separate of that from both Wayne Township and the city of Indianapolis. Speaking of school districts, to the left is Speedway High School, home of the Spark Plugs. Seems only fitting. Among the most notable people to have called Speedway home includes actress Joyce DeWitt, who is mostly known for playing the role of Janet Wood in the 70s and 80s TV sitcom called Three's Company. I didn't have my double side cam set up while filming this video, as I only had it set up for one side of the car, but anyway, for whatever it's worth, to the right is a Coca-Cola bottling facility, even though you can't see it on the screen. Surrounding the Coca-Cola bottling facility is acres of grass fields that are used for parking and tailgating for the once-a-year Indy 500 race. "30th Street is just barely within the city limits of Indianapolis at this point. The residential areas to the left are a part of the Indianapolis city limits, while the grass lots to the right are owned by the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and are a part of the Speedway city limits. From this point, I skipped the video from the far north side of the Speedway city limits to the far east side, where I enter by heading west on 16th Street right by the track. Even though the track is mostly known for the Indy 500 race, other races that are held at IMS include the Brickyard 400, which is a part of the NASCAR Cup Series. The track also hosts motorcycle races, and there's a dirt track on the property to support other types of racing as well. In 1975, IMS was added to the National Register of Historic Places, and in 1987 it was designated as a National Historic Landmark. It's the only National Historic Landmark in the United States to be affiliated with automotive racing. On this day, the part of the property that's referred to as infield wasn't accessible, but you're often able to enter it throughout the year during normal times, and times that aren't on holiday weekends, of course. The track sees on average 1 million visitors per year, and inside the track is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum, along with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Hall of Fame. Now we're in downtown Speedway, and to the left you can see some newer residential and commercial mixed-use buildings. Looks much better than it did 10 years ago. Good job, Speedway. You can also see that there's plenty of nice shops and restaurants to choose from on the opposite side of Main Street. Speedway was always meant to be a suburb of Indy to serve the workers of nearby industries within Indianapolis. The town was incorporated in 1926, or exactly 17 years after IMS was built. James A. Allison, along with Frank Wheeler and Arthur Newby, helped plan the city of Speedway, just as the same trio helped fund and construct the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. The goal of the town was to be a city without horses and one that favored automobiles, along with having a majority of the residents work in the auto industry to help evolve automobiles at the time. Sounds like the mindset of many Michigan towns back in the day when Henry Ford invented the assembly line in the Detroit suburb of Dearborn. And another stroll through a thoroughfare that heads through the heart of the Speedway residential areas, because why not? Now, I know this firsthand, as on the weekend of race day, traffic is like nothing I've ever seen. They'll turn these major thoroughfares into massive one-way streets in order to help traffic get towards the speedway. A typical thoroughfare around here sees on average around 13,000 vehicles a day maybe, and imagine fitting in 300,000 people heading towards the race, which you could estimate that would be around maybe 120,000 vehicles. 16th Street is usually packed all the way from the track to downtown. You can forget using Crawfordsville Road as it's the closest route to take to the freeway. I'm not trying to complain and paint that as a negative for this area, I'm just trying to illustrate how packed this area can really be. Also during Memorial Day weekend, hotel rooms are all booked up and overpriced, so are the Airbnbs. It's funny because I was once renting a 2-bedroom apartment about 3 miles from here, and while I was there I opened up my second bedroom for an Airbnb during the 2016 race. Well, anyway, within minutes of listing my apartment, I got a message from a couple in suburban Chicago. I provided an air mattress for them in one of the bedrooms, and with them being an older, wealthy couple, it ended up being that they were expecting something much nicer. Nonetheless, they were livid that all they got was an air mattress, and they were just as harsh as some of you are in the comment sections of my videos. Lucky for me, I didn't have to worry about them knowing where I slept that night. I ended up getting called in to work a shift that ran through the night and into the morning at the job that I had at the time, so at least they got the joint to themselves. They also didn't seem like the type that would vandalize or steal, as they were pretty classy folks despite the outrage over having to sleep on an air mattress, and plus I didn't have anything in there because I was a broke kid straight out of college. I think that after letting out some steam and realizing that my listing was way cheaper than everyone else's, and realizing that they got the whole apartment to themselves, and realizing that they were only 3 miles from the track, that it wasn't all that bad of a deal at all if they had to sleep on an air mattress and they paid maybe $100 less than they would elsewhere. Well, they ended up giving me a great review on Airbnb despite the rant, and I never saw them again, and I took down the Airbnb listing after that. Now, in case you're wondering, this building on the right sells some dry ice. Only fitting to have Speedway tanker trucks at this parking lot here. And this street is called Gasoline Alley, not to be confused with the actual Gasoline Alley inside the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which is the area where the garages are that the cars are kept. In this video, you saw the ins and outs of the city of Speedway, Indiana, the racing capital of the world. You also heard plenty of history and facts about the Indy 500 race, along with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I do end the video here. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, as doing all of those things helps these videos destroy the evil monster that is the YouTube algorithm. Also, make sure to hit that notification bell so that you can be notified every time that I upload a new video. If you enjoyed this video, you might enjoy checking out some of the featured playlists on this channel. Videos with amazing insights on other places like what you see here can be found in my Indianapolis playlist or in my Indiana playlist. Last but not least, if you can't get enough of me on here, you can always go follow me on my other social media accounts, and those links are below. We'll see you next time. Peace.